going on, Degeneration? Kenny Kim here, bringing you the 300th episode of the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast. We do have a special guest coming up here later, but first, I am with everybody's favorite Canadian, Tyler Tamboline. Tyler, what is up, my friend?
A lot is going on, Kenny. I'm excited. It's episode 300. You talked about that. And then also, we've got a brand new sponsor. So I definitely want to talk about that. Usually this is where I tell you we're brought to this by this. This week, I'm going to tell you it's our new sponsor, and that's prizepicks.com. We're going to be with prizepicks.com going forward from today on. We got them all throughout the new season. Going to bring a whole new segment to you guys. So it's a lot more content for you. That's the good news. Nothing is changing from the old show. We're bringing you all the same stuff as always. Story time with Kenny, the course preview, the breakdown, the recap, going through the DK tiers, listener league, all of those things. But the biggest thing with this is just want to talk a little bit about the offerings. There's nothing up yet this week for the golf, but we do have all the other sports. So prizepicks.com, it's prop parlays, right? You're going to put together fantasy props with multiple guys. You can do 2 up to 5. You can set it up for flex play, which is where you're just getting the number that you're picking correct, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, whatever it ends up being, 3 out of 5. Or you can go to power play, which is where you need to hit them all, 5 out of 5, 3 out of 3, whatever it is that you choose. When we get to the season with the actual picks, we'll have it set up for you where Kenny and I both give maybe 1 or 2 picks up front. And then as we get throughout the show, we'll come up with some more for you that you can put together, talk about how we're parlaying them, all of those factors. So like I said, again, it's more winnings, more parlays, more props for you guys. A lot of fun when it comes to that. And then if you guys haven't signed up yet, you can go over there. We do have a special promo code for you. It's promo code MMN, just like this network, Mayo Media Network. You guys can use that code on your first deposit. It's 100% match up to your first $100. So put your $100 on, have 200 to start with. Play the season with us, play small. And then if you want to keep going from there, you can. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a big season ahead, Kenny. But we've got even bigger news today, too. We've got a big guest on the show. So why don't you bring our guest in, Kenny? Talk to us about who we've got for this week before we get into the recap of the BMW Championship.
All right, so for our 300th episode, we decided to bring back Triple OG, Bradley Messersmith. Brad, what is up, my friend? It's so good to have you back. It's so weird to see your face.
What is going on
the screen? It's so strange. When me and Brad did the show together, if you guys don't know, Brad was one of the original, maybe not original. He came about 2 months after we started. We started this pod the last week of December in 2015. Jesus, 2015, almost 7 full years of doing this pod. And Brad was here for the first half. We brought him. It was me and Zach Woods who started the pod. I was writing for Rick Gaiman at the time. And Zach was a Twitter follower of mine. And, I followed him and he was putting out golf information. And one day he was like, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, sure. I never met the guy. Never met Zach. Never met. And then about 2 months later, we add Brad to the mix. So Brad came on right around the California swing. In 2016. He was on all the way till about the 2019-2020 season is when he stopped. So it was really nice. I love Brad. He's like a brother to me. It was great. Brad, how are you? Where you been? What you been up to, man?
What is going on, Degen Nation? It's been far too long, man. I missed you guys. Love you guys. Yeah, So I went and got my master's degree as promised. I went to IU and got my master's in business analytics. So cleared that out. Then since then, I've gotten a couple promotions now. So I'm running a manufacturing facility. So, busy all the time, especially post-COVID. We're in the vehicle market. So lots of people buying cars. Just looking, watching golf and just living the dream right now, I quit drinking back in February. So
go ahead. What did you just say? What did you just say?
I said I quit drinking back in February. So wow. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. I 6 months sober. So, and I lost 45 pounds.
Yeah. You look great.
No big deal.
Yeah. You look great. Congrats on being sober. I will say that's probably not in my repertoire, but I will say, since I've had my little health scare, I've cut my drinking back. Probably about, 2 or 3 times I drink a month now. So I cut it back a lot. Well, the only problem is, it's me. So I need some type of vice, right? So I've been doing a lot more pot, a lot more weed.
Okay.
Now, first off, before I tell the rest of the story, marijuana legal in Virginia, legal. We're not breaking any laws. Okay. Now, I will say it's a different game. Like the weed game's a different game than it was back when, like, I was a kid. Like, you know, I'd go drive up to like P Street or Galveston in DC and pick up like a 20 sack from some guy on the corner, and it'd be like half stems and half seeds.
Some random
you know what
guy.
I'm saying? Yeah, it would be horrible, right? You know, and then now it's like so what I've been using is, I don't smoke it anymore, rarely. It's concentrates and edibles. Is basically where I've gone. And so these edibles nowadays, I got this thing, it's called a cannabis syrup. That's what I've been using. It's like a cough medicine bottle, right? 1,000 milligrams of THC. And so, like, when you know, you just take a little swig. But the thing is, like, these edibles nowadays, it's like you're getting high for the first time ever, like again and again and again. That's why. Like, do you remember the first time you got high? The first time I got high, I remember. I'll tell the story. I was. And of course, I'm telling these stories after Brad just says, you know,
keep
he's
rolling.
completely sober.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Okay, I want to hear more.
Sorry, Brad.
Anytime I can get Kenny on a rant, I'm all for it. Go for it.
So like, the first time I got high, I was in 9th grade, like first couple of weeks of high school. I go into we leave school's over, we go to this apartment complex, and like my buddy rolls like a joint with like McDonald's brown paper bag, like paper. Right. You know, back then this was like 94. So it probably had like asbestos and lead and shit all in that paper. You know what I'm saying? Just carcinogens everywhere. And so he rolls it up. We smoke it behind this dumpster right behind the high school. And there's a McDonald's like walking distance. So I'm walking to McDonald's. First off, like, I'm super stoned and like mumbling to myself. Like, everything like tastes like nickel, like a metallic taste. If you guys remember. So we get to the McDonald's and I get like a Big Mac, like 20-piece nuggets, double quarter pounder with cheese. Like, I literally just crushed all this food. Like, it was like a 20 feet out McDonald's challenge, but I actually finished it. You know what I'm saying? It was incredible. And so, but now, like, when I take this cough syrup stuff, again, legal, not breaking any laws, it literally feels like I'm getting high for the first time ever. And remember, like, a lot of the times when you got high back in the days, like, it sort of got your creative juices flowing. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, this weekend, like on Saturday, I knew you were going to be on the show, Brad. And you know, I took a big old swig. I probably, you know, it takes me like 4 swigs to finish a bottle. So I guess I'm killing like 250 milligrams of THC every swig. That's a lot. Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
Don't judge. Don't judge.
Yeah, don't judge. I like. You know, if I'm gonna get high, I'm gonna get fucking high.
You drink it out of a beaker too?
High. What's up?
I said, you drink it out of a beaker too and inject it?
No, I just drink it straight out of the fucking bottle. It's sitting right here. I'll bring it out. Maybe I'll drink it by the end of the show, because I can't drink it during the show, because I've tried that before. Again, Tony Finau, McDonald's challenge. I was stoned trying to make sure I can eat all those burgers and shit in time, which I didn't. But then what I didn't realize is the high was going to keep on going. And basically it was impossible for me to like say words. If you go back and look at that podcast, it was hard for me. Hard.
Disaster
Yeah.
all around.
I'm not tuning.
You think the people knew?
I don't know.
They knew.
They probably had to. They probably had to. Anyways, so I was on my couch. I drank like, you know, a bunch of this syrup. And like, the thing about it is, like, I come up with all these great ideas for the pod, all these great bits, all these great stories. The problem is, like, literally when I think of the story, if I think of anything else, I immediately forget what I was just thinking, and I can't remember at all. Like, I can't remember at all. And so from now on, so what I'm going to do, because what I'm going to do from now on, because the creative juices are flowing, I had all these great bits. Like, this show is going to be amazing. And I don't remember any of it. So the show's probably going to suck, other than Brad. I apologize. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get a little Post-it note, a little journal, so I can write all these ideas down. So be ready for this new season. I'm telling you, we're going to come with a lot of crazy stuff coming up. because
No,
of,
no, it'd be better. I'm cutting you
What?
off. We need to
Go
go.
ahead, go
We need to go. We'll even expense it to the show. We need to go voice recorder so that we can play that shit back on the episode so the people can hear about your crazy ideas that you thought were so good and
get
play
one of
them
those
back on the show before
a
we
Ring
exit.
video camera.
Yeah,
I know,
That's
or
what you need, a
something.
Ring.
Maybe I just put it on my phone, just record
You know
it,
what?
and I'll play it. What's up?
Sell it as pay-per-view. There you go.
Yeah. Anyways, I sort of went off topic here. Let's talk about the beginning of our pod once again. The one thing Brad and Tampa does great too, but one thing Brad did amazing was bringing partnerships and sponsorships to our podcast. If you go back and look at who Brad put on our show, I mean, there was some. Okay, so first off, Draft. If you guys remember old Draft.com, a lot of fun. People love that site. Got bought by FanDuel. No one knows what happened to it ever again. Well, they were when they first started, we were one of their first shows that they had a sponsorship for. We had them for 2 years. They paid us really good. When I got that first check by fucking Draft.com, I was like, holy shit, you can make this much fucking money talking bullshit out your ass on a fucking podcast. It's incredible. Now, Brad, that's one that comes to mind. There are others like Fanshare Sports. Those guys over there still going strong. When they first started, we were one of their first sponsors. I know we used to work with the Fantasy Fanatics, Playco, all his stuff. He ended up getting bought out by Fantasy Labs. And there's more to this. Brad, how did you do that business part? I mean, that was amazing back then. And any other memories that you have of the podcast from back in the day? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's so many. Like you said, they just come flooding back. I mean, that's
good because I don't remember shit. So go ahead and remind me right now, please.
One of the things actually that's pretty cool is if you guys remember, the Fantasy Golf Degenerates had a blog for a while. Yeah. One of those guys won the Millie Maker, I think, in golf, actually, Wedge.
He did.
I don't know if you remember that. I was so
Knox,
happy for
right?
him. I saw it.
Nate Knox?
Yeah, you're right. Nate Knox.
Yeah.
It wasn't Wedge. Yeah, you're right. It was Nate Knox. Yeah, he wrote for the blog for like 4 years. He's a millionaire because of golf, gambling.
Well,
you know
who else wrote for the blog? Eric Patterson, who works for the Score. Is a pretty well-known name out in the industry now. Because I remember when I gave up writing on Rick Rungood's site and they needed somebody to do a course preview for his site, I suggested Eric, and Eric took over and he started working with Rick. And then now both of those guys are freaking huge now. And then Brad actually recommended Tambo.
That's right. I feel very lucky to be here,
yeah,
Brad.
Worked out okay, didn't it?
I had no clue the fuck Tambo was. Like, who the fuck is toe tagging Tambo? What the fuck kind of stupid ass name is that? Tambo, I'm kidding. I love you. But I mean, that's what you first think when you hear, that. And I've been working with Brad for so long. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Well, it fucking worked. I'm so glad to have Tambo on the show.
You prefaced the whole thing with everything Brad touches is gold, and Brad picked me, so it has worked out. Brad is the key to all of this.
The fingerprints of Brad are still, on this podcast. Any stories, anything you remember? See, I'm trying to remember when I started breaking out, like the Cash Game Cornerstones, when I started breaking out the story time with Kenny. I know I told a few of those stories back then.
Come so far.
Yeah. The problem is I can't find any of those pods anymore. Like the first 150 pods that we've done, I have no idea where they are. I have no idea where they are. No clue.
Actually, I told some people at one point that I was on this podcast and they didn't believe me. So, fuck them. Here I am, baby. It was real.
It was real.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the other cool things I was thinking about was, do you remember? I mean, I think Storytime with Kenny started because our podcasts, when we recorded them, we'd record an hour and then you and me would talk for 2. Before and after.
Yeah.
And we'd still be talking about golf. We'd be talking golf and players and what are you doing this week and that week. And I mean, we were up, I remember because you would get off on second shift from when you were a waiter or at the restaurant, right? And it'd be 11 o'clock. I could barely keep my eyes open. We'd be talking golf till 4 a.m. and I'd be working at 7:30 the next day.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty impressive that she did it. Tam, anything to add?
Yeah, I want to ask Brad something for sure. I think this is huge, and like I said, like you mentioned, I ended up starting as a guest on this show with both of you, so this is kind of awesome, coming full circle, and now we're flipping it backwards, getting a 300 episode together. It's just incredible. Congrats, by the way. First off, Brad, all the stuff you talked about, going sober, losing the weight, that's amazing stuff, man. I wanted to ask you about this because what you were always known for the most, I think, on this show was how good you were at pegging the ownership for the week, right? Like even on Monday, you were solid with having it pegged down. Now, I'm sure if you've just paid, any attention over the last even 2 years at all, I'm not sure how much you've been in the streets, but it's now like it's the biggest thing of all time. It changes from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. It's nonstop throughout the week. So have you stayed on top of it as far as, seeing how it's changed? And then what were you doing back then to come up with ownership? I'm just curious how much, even if you haven't paid attention now, that it's changed from what you used to do process-wise back then to what you think is happening right now, or we can fill in.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because really the way this happened was DFS and golf was so new when we were starting this podcast. And I kind of started out my journey in DFS very different than a lot of other people, because I was already very statistically oriented with my engineering and my background. So I sort of went straight into the stats, and I realized pretty quickly that the ownership was a big piece of the puzzle, right? And this was early enough where I don't think most of the masses had really figured this out. So part of why I even got on the podcast in the first place was because I won the quarter arcade, and I was on Twitter or whatever and just mentioned it, I think, to Zach Woods or Kenny, and they were like, hey, come on as a guest, and we just all clicked. It was just magic out of the gate. So they were like, just keep coming on. And I won the quarter arcade like two or three times that year, and then 3 or 4 more times after that, and never really like ever wanted to go up into the high stakes or anything like that, and didn't have enough money to want to risk it anyways. But the ownership thing just started as me wanting to be a better DFS player, and then pretty quickly the model that I created got a little bit better and a little bit better. That's part of why I partnered with Fanshare Sports, because I knew how valuable their information was and their data. And sorry, I'm plugging them on your podcast, but
no, I like those guys.
I mean, yeah,
it really was.
The shows all the fucking time, bro.
Yeah,
we plug on this shit all the time.
You know what? When you ask about like the business side of the podcast and how that all developed, it really developed because I wanted to meet people in the industry, and I wanted to meet people that were smart and doing good things. And when you create relationships with those kind of people, it's real easy to see that you're going to go with them, and you're going to develop those kind of key marquee relationships that help you along the way. And when you're willing to help other people, that's how it works. Typically, it's a two-way street. So I kind of always started from a place of, how can I learn from you? How can you learn from me? How can we work together to make each other stronger? And then
that's how we got where we were,
right?
If we didn't have Mayo's help, if we didn't have other people's help, I mean, the one that comes to mind is Pat. He had you on the show, he had me on the show back then in like mid 2016, and that's how we sort of got our base and our following, and he helped us, and it grew, and I think you were just returning the favor, and you don't see that as much nowadays in DFS.
For sure.
Back then, the DFS streets were super friendly.
It was,
what I'm saying?
We were close.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody was like, there were no competitors.
Friendly, everybody helping out everybody else. I mean, it's a lot different now.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
back then it was great. I mean, it was wonderful. It was the way running a business or running something like this should go. You develop great relationships, and those relationships help you grow and expand and get bigger and reach the masses. And that's exactly what happened.
I think it's a great point. Like that's something I try and preach all the time because of the people that have done it for me. So even when I do the tidbits, the thread on Twitter every week, it's like, try and bring it. There's so many great people out there doing content, putting it out for free, putting their time into it. And some of them are paid, some of them aren't, but they put that stuff out there for everybody to help them out. It's like, I think sometimes people think the space is, sort of bigger than it is. Like they have to fight for this. Like it's still very small in the grand scheme of industries, if you will. We always talk about this industry is very small in comparison to other industries. So really should be a little bit more friendly and just be willing to reach out. Like Brad said, network, that's marketing, but it's also you're building friendships, relationships, just stronger offerings so that when you have something that you need, somebody's there to help you out, and then you can pick them up, they can pick you up type of thing. So I love that you've been doing it forever, man. That's incredible. And as far as ownership goes, the original original question, it's just crazy that back then, like you said, it sounds probably crazy to those listening that it really wasn't as big of a deal. And now it's like the full focus, the most important thing. It really wasn't as big back then. Those that knew how to use it and go, to their advantage, like yourself, that was the key. But it wasn't like it is talked about now. There wasn't like before FanShare came out, all of those things like you mentioned, other sites doing ownership. It just wasn't as big of a deal. And now it's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, Kenny, you mentioned Mayo. I want to mention, I think in a lot of ways we owe everything to Pat, because in a lot of ways he was the one that was showing us that it was even possible to do what we were trying to do. And I feel like if Pat hadn't laid that groundwork, I mean, he set the bar for us. He was our biggest competitor, but he was also our biggest cheerleader at the same time. And when you think about how that community works within, that was sort of the way DFS was. Everybody just wanted to see each other
even
grow.
the tour junkies, it was the tour junkies and Pat. They were the ones that were out before us. And then we were like the third one out, and then now there's like, 300, but like back then it wasn't that many. And everyone was friendly. I'm cool. We were cool with the tour junkies. We mentioned them on the show. Pat loved us. We were on shows together with the tour junkies, with Fantasy Golf Insider, all on Mayo's show, bringing everyone together. So yeah, 100% correct. I mean, Pat is the godfather. Honored to work for him. Glad to be here. Pat, of course, he's one of the best dudes out there, and he's helped so many people, get by and move upwards in this industry, and it's still happening today. Still today, he's doing the same shit, which is pretty incredible stuff for him. Brad, favorite guest? We used to have a lot of guests.
Wow, that's a tough one.
And we had some big time guests back then.
You know what?
I know it's probably me, but I'm here, so say someone different. Say someone different, right?
Yeah, not Tim.
I know who mine is.
Tim started as a guest. I think of all of the ones, the one I think I liked the most because I learned the most was J686. If you guys remember that.
I do.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
J6. So here's what happened. Here's the backstory, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that don't understand or realize what happened.
Brad, before you start the story, didn't you used to do one-on-one pods as a branch out for the Fantasy Golf Degenerates? And I think you did one with J686. Yep. That's why we need to find those first like 150 episodes. They're like lost in the ether somewhere. I have no idea where they're at, because we've changed.
I'll see if I can dig those out, actually.
Yeah,
that
because
would be a
we've
good one to
changed
listen to.
like, pod things so often that, when we transfer them over, sometimes we might have lost them or something. Anyways, keep going. Go ahead. J686.
Okay. So what happened was, this guy, I think in the course of 2 straight weeks, won every fucking GPP there was. I mean, and with different lineups. So he won like from the $3 all the way up to the $300. He won every one of the major GPPs, the featured ones that had big prize pools. He won them all, and they all had different lineups. And I was like, I could not believe that this happened. And then the next week he did the same effing thing. And I mean, my mind was exploding at this point, because for those obviously that play GPPs understand how impossibly difficult that is. And so I was like, nobody knows who is this guy? So I look him up on Twitter, and he's just starting to, like, people are just starting to figure out who he is and realize how much of a sicko he is. So I'm like, get this guy on a podcast ASAP. So I reached out to him on Twitter, and I think, Kenny, you're right. I think we might have done a one-on-one just because I really wanted to freaking talk to the guy. And he walked us through. You were there though. I'm sure you were, because I remember you and I talking a lot about the strategy after the fact. But I mean, he talked very elegantly. The school of thought at the time was that you kind of just pile into a bunch of golfers, like 8 or 10 golfers. And he very elegantly talked about having a player pool and having 35 people and 23 golfers, and what the difference looks like, and how he scales his ownership. And this guy was, I guess, some kind of market wizard and came out of finance, but he was very smart, and really one of, I think, the very, very early people to be figuring out really GPP strategy the way we think of it today. And to look back at that and think about like how lucky I was to just hit that guy up on Twitter and be able to talk to him and learn from him and stuff. that's what this podcast is all about. It's about making your listeners and viewers better. Find those people. You guys are great examples yourself too these days. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Hey, let me interject right quick because I love that story and full circle it right here. I don't know if Kenny's got more to add, but I can go back in my iPhone notes right here. January 17th, 2017, 1:14 a.m. Golf strategy with J686. And I've got like 7 paragraphs where I was taking every note from that podcast, listening to it. And he talked about qualifiers, bankroll management, types of tournaments that matter, how many guys to play in your no-cut fields versus your regulars, like spreading out AB, like with AB in this lineup, BC in that lineup, like separating it. So that's crazy when you think about it. Just sparked in my mind when Kenny asked you who was your guest, I was thinking you were going to say him, and I had that saved from back then. So if you can find those pods, I can tell you it's right around that time, somewhere back in 2017.
We might have to find them and re-release them.
I was just a listener
on our iTunes
learning
pod.
from the pod, trying to get better.
Because Brad used to do these discussion pods. That's what they were called. It was one-on-one. It was either me and him and one other guest, and we wouldn't even talk about the field. We would talk about strategy for an hour. We wouldn't even talk about players. You know what I'm saying? And you had a bunch of those. We have to find those and bring those back. Yeah. Because I think you could still learn from that, even though the game's changed a little bit. I think you could still learn from those. You need to bring that. It was such
a cool excuse to talk to cool people too. I mean, I talked to like fantasy, the champion.
We had RG Notorious on. We had Moose on.
Tons and tons of.
We had the Fantasy Golf Insider guys.
Yeah, tons of big guys. Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. All right, so enough nostalgia. All right, let's go ahead and talk about golf this week. First off, let's go over a little bit of strategy. Let's talk about this event that's coming up, the Tour Championship.
Recap. But Patrick Cantlay just won.
I told you I just forgot. I'm going to forget something. Recap last week. Cantlay won. Whoop-de-doo. I didn't have him. He pissed me off. I had Xander. And I had Morikawa, who lost like 27 strokes on 2 holes on Sunday to screw me out of that. I wasn't too happy. Now, I will say, Cash and Cornerstones, solid in cash once again. That's how, back in the day, I made my bones. I started cashing cornerstones by late 2016, early 2017, and then the 2018-19 season came, and I was like 83% made cut percentage on my cash and cornerstones for the year. I had won like 75% of the weeks that I played in cash, and that's what really brought me, at least my part of the pod. It had a good dynamic with Brad being the GPP guy and me being the cash guy. Now we're back on the same thing. Tambo, excellent GPP player. Me, I had a little bit of a lull. But now I think I'm coming back up when it comes to the cash. We're getting back in there. The last 10 weeks have been really fucking good. And so my cash and cornerstones, I think 3 of them were in the top 14, top 12, once again, with a third place guy. And I had Finau, who, fucked up in the beginning, but 10, 11, 12, 13 birdies in the last three days to make up for it for a little. Other guys, Scott Stallings, playing really, really good golf. Like the problem I've had with Scott Stallings is in the beginning of this run about 2 months ago, I played him like, 2-3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row. I'm like, this can't keep happening. Scott Stallings, what I'm saying? He's a 7K golfer, 6K golfer. He can't keep going on this run. So I haven't played him in like a month and it's hurt. I didn't play him last week, but he has been playing really, really good golf. Interesting at 7,200. Hey, did you watch the tournament last week, Brad?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, these playoffs have been super exciting. It's so cool to see. I mean, Cantlay kind of, in my mind, sort of felt out a little bit like under-recognized for how good he's been all year. And you come into these tournaments now, originally with this format, I was really concerned. But now you've got 30 guys coming into this tournament and really coming out of last tournament where they're all clawing for that top 30. And they're all so freaking good now that, I mean, watching the end of any of these tournaments has been super exciting because everything's close. Everybody's right there fighting for it.
Yeah, I will say Wilmington Country Club, the superintendent there had some balls, because you got to think, this event rotates every year, so you never know if it's going to come back. Okay, and usually when these guys set up the courses, and it's the first time they've ever played on the course, they want the course looking pristine. Like visually, they want it to be green and lush and beautiful. And usually when that happens, it leads to easier scoring conditions. Everything's soft, they water everything every day. I mean, the guys over there went to say, fuck it. We're going to make this green purple and brown. Okay. And going to make it firm and lightning fast. And it's not going to look pretty on the TV, but it's going to make for good golf. And that's exactly what happened. If this course was soft, if this course was slow, dudes would be shooting 25, 27, just like they did last year, Case Valley. They'd be shooting 25, 27 under. These guys had the balls enough to make this course difficult and keep it difficult and not worry about the aesthetics of the course, even though this might be their only chance to showcase their course on TV ever. And they decide to go this route instead of where everybody else goes, where they just make the course look pretty and people score out the ass. So kudos to the people who set up the course over there, Wilmington, Delaware. I hope it goes back there. I hope it looks the same. What do you think of the course, Tambo?
Yeah, I thought you just nailed it. That was what I was going to say, actually, is, for what started the week, not that excited of a course, but, just to see how it was going to play.
I thought it was 22, 24 under, birdie fest, whatever.
I was actually happier it went this way. It's the sign of a good tournament when down the stretch, you actually don't know who's going to take it home. Like you didn't expect Stallings to, but like Cantlay, Xander, Scotty, Rory and Rahm were making runs at it at one point. Rahm from the clouds, by the way, didn't even show up at all on Thursday again, and then comes back and does his thing. But yeah, it was the week of the flop leg, so not the best week for me, but Stallings, Scheffler, and Rory all in the top 8, second, third, eighth, where the week before they did not come through down in Memphis. So I didn't care about that down in Memphis. I wanted them gone because that worked for me. I wasn't on the pod last week, but Memphis was incredible. But coming back to this week was not the best for me. I had a good.
I forgot.
It was a good week.
It was a good time. Did you eat some barbecue? What'd you do?
Yeah, we ate some good barbecue a couple times. We got some. I talked about it on another show. They asked me, was it great? I said it was underwhelming to me, and people hate me for this, but that's okay. But like the ones that are from there, but it wasn't like blow me away. It wasn't like, wow, I need to go back there again right away to get that barbecue. Like it wasn't, the life-changing barbecue that I don't know. I'd say that for now. We'll leave it at that. But a great week overall. Got to see the best tournament ever that I've been to live of like the 5 or 6 that I've been to. It was definitely the best, not just because winning money, but just that ending being right there with Willie Z, everything. It was an incredible time. But this past week, Cantlay just got the job done again. From a DraftKings perspective, it was crazy to look back. I always do my reviews and stuff. It was right there. Like if you looked, Cantlay, X, and Scheffler were like the 3 best 9K guys on projections, on anything you do that you look at. Basically for me, it made sense if you just went that balanced route, but there's just so many good guys up at the top in the course, whether it played hard or easy. I thought that would be the guys that find their way up. Rahm almost did, Rory almost did, but it wasn't enough. And so that balanced build. And then I got the Lucas Herbert call right. That was the one, on Mayo's show. I kept bringing it up. People were like, why the fuck do you like this guy? And I was like, I just thought it was a good setup for him. I like the price. I like that he was $100 more than Kitayama and List. And Kitayama still did his thing. He was okay, but like Herbert looked really good to me. So that was solid. And, just excited for this week. It's an event that people leave behind. We're going to get to it, but in general, this event is still an opportunity. I posted on Twitter today, Kenny, we're going to talk strategy anyway. So it's a good segue, but everything I heard the last couple of days, even over the weekend, when people were losing their sweats in the no cut, they're like, oh, I'm not even looking forward to next week. I'm just going to shut it down. It's just going to be 100-way chop at the top, 30-man field, blah, blah, blah. Well, last year, Rick Gaiman, we talked about it earlier. He posted the optimal every. I went back and looked. It was 49.8, so almost full salary utilization, and it had 3 guys over 30%. Our guy Skylar Hope, Skyhook DFS, he posted that up. I looked, 3 guys over 30%. Only 1 guy, I think at 10 or 11% was like the lowest owned, and still
no single
only
digits.
2 dupes.
Yep.
So
only 2 dupes.
There's ways to get different here. There's ways to be unique. That lineup, for example, skipped a bunch of ranges. I don't think it had a 10K and a 7K or it had like 1 6K, but either way, I'm just saying there's definitely some fun this week, and there's still huge contests out there. So I'm excited to get into it and talk more strategy. But what do you got? What do you want to go?
All right, let's go strategy first before I go into this thing. Now, what I'm thinking is that lineup last year was superstars and scrubs, right? I don't know if that was the popular way to go about it last year. I don't remember. But this year, just looking at this, looking at the field and their pricing, it seems like it screams stars and scrubs to me, especially if you got Wise down below, you got Thigala down cheap, you got Adam Scott down cheap. There's cheap plays, you can easily play and fit. And I think, that type of three, elite golfers, three scrubs is going to be a very popular way to go, more popular than balanced, in my opinion. What do you think, Brad?
That was my same strategy bullet point, buddy.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding.
So I think,
because here's the thing: people are going to look down that list and they're going to see Spieth, and they're just going to click. I think. I don't know. I mean, the ownership
or Morikawa at 7-9.
Or Morikawa is going to be very, very popular.
Yeah.
I agree. But the point though is that there's those names down there. People are just going to naturally see that number next to their name.
So you think it's going to be more balanced or more stars and scrubs this week?
I think most people are going to pick stars and scrubs because they're going to see a line.
Here's the thing.
They're going to see a name that they can stomach at 5K probably.
When it comes down to leaving money under the table, I think if you go stars and scrubs, I think you have to leave more under the table to have a better chance of being unique. I think if you go balanced, since not as many people are going that route, you can go a little bit less, not go too much under the cap. Does that make sense to you, Tambo? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's that's good. I think that's the idea. Like you're saying, if you're going to do that, you're going to go with the same route that everyone else is going. Then you got to decide either to use really contrarian guys within that route or leave more money on the table. If you go the other way, you can, of course, be a little bit more chalky. But I think there's an elephant in the room that we got to talk about. It's not a big elephant, it's a baby. But if we just talk about this first, there is something that ties in not only the event, but the strategy that we're talking about here with stars and scrubs. And that is that Will Zalatoris WD'd from the event, during the event, after getting all stretched out and bent up there. We'll have to see, but back and hip, like everyone's like, there's no way. My understanding of the rules is as long as he qualifies for the FedEx Cup finals, he gets the money. It's not like a WGC where he must hit one shot from a sponsor to get it. I understand that. And I think people forget, like, of course he wants to go out and play. He's near the top of the board. There's 18 million this year up top for that. And if he can play and he's healthy, and I hope he is, that's what we want to see, but we will have to wait and see. He's not a very super public guy. He's not on Twitter heavily. He's not on Instagram heavily. It's usually for promotion, sponsors, things like that. I couldn't find anything today. I think his health is number one, and it looked pretty bad. So we will have to wait on him. The reason I said a baby elephant is because the other guy is Cam Smith. I don't know, going back to that one right quick, not to get into a whole separate discussion here, but when I was at the event in Memphis, even on Saturday, I said this last week on the Run Pure show, but he actually was stretching his hip out on Saturday. I remember one of the guys in the DK tent being like, stretch it out, Cam. And he was going back and forth. Like the hip looked to be bothering him a little bit then. So I believe it could be real. And why not take the extra week for him to fall back a few strokes going into this week? It's not a game changer where he can't get into the mix. Like Kevin Na shot 266s and 267s last year in this thing to tie Rahm for the win of the event without starting strokes. So you know what I mean? Like there's an opportunity for a guy like Cam Smith. He's still way up the board. But the reason I brought that up, Kenny, not to go on a tangent, is just Will Zalatoris is 11.5. Cam Smith is 10.4. So when you go stars and scrubs, you already know who the lowest stars are going to be, assuming they play. I'm going with Willie is going to play, assuming maybe it was just a tweak and he got his service this week and he's good to go to be able to get in good shape to play again, hopefully. But assuming they both play, they still are going to be the lowest owned. So then you've got to think last year, Cantlay was 13,400 and he was only 12% owned coming off the win. This year he's 13,000 coming off the win, but I think people like Scotty more than Cantlay. If they're going up there, so you got to think Scotty, and then Rahm and Rory are getting the ownership. Like Rory's too cheap, Rahm is too good. Everyone just saw it 3 out of 4 days, and he's still in the mix, and he scores, and he won the event without starting strokes last year here. Like there's just so many things for these guys here. So I think, what are your thoughts on that, Kenny? And then you can go to Brad. But like, I think Scheffler, Rahm, Rory. And then you got to remember a little bit on Xander, because I'm not full course history guy here, but third, first, second, seventh, first, taking away staggered and all that stuff. That's his technical results at this course. So he absolutely crushes at Eastlake. So what are your thoughts on just those 4 guys up top?
Yeah, Rahm, Rory would probably be the 2 highest owned. I think Xander would be 3rd.
Yeah,
I think Xander will be 3rd highest owned in this group. And we're jumping ahead but I mean, that's what I see here. But I like your point. I mean, if you're going to go stars and scrubs and you have a Willie Z or you have a Cam Smith on there, well, then maybe you don't need to go too far down in salary to be, to not get duped.
Yeah, you'll already have it. And I mean, I'm not sure, Brad, how far you looked into this, but just going back to your roots, the ownership stuff here, I actually think Kenny might be right. I definitely think I almost know it's Rom Rory today, just coming in here. It's not going to change. It's whatever it ends up being. But how do you see ownership shaking out, not even getting into the tiers yet? Just how do you see it shaking out up top, being that we're talking strategy-wise, stars and scrubs?
Yeah, I think you nailed the two guys. Rom and Rory are for sure going to be the ones that people go after. Now, I think actually Xander might be an interesting piece, though. If you are going to go stars and scrubs, you're kind of looking at like the Cantlays and the Xanders of the world that might go overlooked, especially Cantlay coming off a win. People tend not to want to roster that guy.
Cantlay was like the 5th or 6th lowest owned last year.
Andy's been there and done that with these wins. So it's not like he's going to come off a hangover or anything, too crazy like that. He's going to go after this FedEx Cup. So I kind of think there could be a stars and scrubs build mixed in there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's going to be popular. Let me
One
go
other
on.
thing right quick, Kenny, too, on that is like you mentioned about Cantlay last year, just in pricing in general, just going back to last week, we literally just talked about what the nuts lineups had last week. It was Scotty, Cantlay, and X, which the difference is, the funny part of this, the way this works is obviously that propels them up the FedEx Cup leaderboard. So now they become your top 3 highest price. So last week, where people did play a lot of Rom Xander or Rom Scheffler, or whatever it might be, now you're flipping it where it's, you got to play Xander Rom, because Xander is more expensive now. Just even though it's the same 2 dudes, or Scheffler Rom, it feels so funny going the opposite way with it. So again, I think how the general public will think, they're not always willing to start that way and then skip over. As much as we're talking about that'll be a popular route, there is a lot of big names through the middle that I think are going to get sprinkled. So that's another thing to note just with general strategy.
All right. I got some more questions, but let's wait till the tiers because it sort of revolves around the tier. Let's go ahead. Let's talk a little bit about this event, the final event of the PGA season. Upon us is the top 30 golfers in the FedEx Cup point list. Head to East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta for the Tour Championship. 3 years ago, the tournament changed when it came to scoring. The FedEx Cup leader, Scheffler, now starts the event at -10, and every other golfer will have between a 2 to 10 stroke disadvantage on the leader, depending on where they're ranked in the FedEx Cup standings coming into the event. Now, it seems like the guys way down the board will have no chance to catch the leaders with the staggered scoring. But in 2020, we saw Xander jump from -4 prior to the first round to holding the lead after the first round. If you guys remember that, he was 6 strokes behind the leader after round 1 and ended round 1 in the lead. Okay. In 2019, we saw Cantlay start at -8, and he finished almost dead fucking last at +1 after the 4 rounds. So movements like that can't happen. Now, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that someone can take this down, that are lower score. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Since this is a 30-man event, no cut, the scoring system is unusual. Okay, I'm going to skip this part. This is all the strategy stuff that I just talked about earlier. So let me go skip that, and we'll go ahead straight to the golf course. East Lake Golf Course, 7,400 yard plus, par 70, 4 par 3s, 2 par 5s. Both the par 5s are reachable, but the prevailing wind shifts. The 600-yard par 5 18th will be tough to reach by shorter hitters. Usually the wind is at the golfer's back on that hole, so it doesn't play quite as long as the 600 yards suggests. The par 3s here at East Lake, really difficult. All 4 routinely end up as 4 of the 9 most difficult holes on the course. 3 of them play over 200 yards, and the 4th is around 193. 5 of the par 4s are over 450 yards, another 5 between 400 and 450, and 2 are under 400. The course was originally designed by Donald Ross, but Reese Jones redesigned the course in 1994. The greens were switched from bentgrass to Bermuda in 2007. East Lake switched to 9s a couple years ago, and they're doing so, and they're keeping it the same. They're going to switch it again. The round ends on a 600-yard par 5 instead of a difficult par 3. When it ended on a par 3, that was horrible. At least now it ends on a par 5. It leaves some drama when it comes down to it. The last 4 holes are now going to make, the final stretch a little bit more challenging. The 15th hole, long par 3 with peninsula green. The prevailing wind usually blows towards the water, and there's a huge bailout bunker on the left. If golfers hit it in this bunker, they're going to have a difficult shot as the green slopes away from them towards the water. The 16th hole has been lengthened recently. Golfers have to deal with a blind approach shot onto a large, multi-tiered, and heavily sloped green. 17th is one of the few holes on the course with major dog leg, and it was also lengthened here a few years ago. And of course, that long par 5 18th, where you're going to see a lot of birdies and eagles, but a big number is possible as well. I mean, a few years ago, I think 5 years ago, we saw Rory hole out for eagle on 16 and Chappell having a birdie putt for the win on 18. So a lot of crazy stuff can happen on those last few holes. Now, off the tee, golfers are going to see tree line fairways, narrow in width, large fairway bunkers in play on the landing zones. The rough 2.5 to 3 inches tall, but it's very thick. So hitting fairways is going to be important. Golfers need to hit certain spots below the hole on the greens to have realistic birdie chances, and hitting it in the rough off the tee will make this a lot more difficult. The numbers show this is less than 50% of approaches from the rough land on the green. Now, this doesn't mean driver is left in the bag here. Many golfers still use the big dog off the tee, so fairways are definitely going to be missed. If golfers struggle off the tee, a solid short game is going to be useful. Now, on approach shots, golfers are going to see a wide array of different green sizes. The larger greens will be multi-tiered with a lot of slope. The smaller greens won't be tiered, but they will have a lot of slope from back to front. Some of the small greens will be sloped from back left to front right and vice versa, which will make putting and chipping a lot more difficult. Greenside bunkers will be in play on most holes, with the majority of them guarding the very front of the greens. These Bermuda gas greens are a main defense of the course. They should play firm and fast, Stimpmeter rating of over 12. Since these greens are so tough to chip and putt on, I think this makes this an approach shot putting contest. And of course, if the greens are going to be missed, you're going to have that short game in there too. Golfers are going to need to hit a ton of greens, and they must be prepared to hit putts with a lot of break and a lot of speed. Brad, so this is a course that, we went over 3 or 4 times while we did the pod together. What are your takes on the course? What are you looking for from golfers?
Yeah, we're firing on all cylinders, buddy. You nailed it. Green and regulation, anything irons, basically all second shot course. So you're looking for strokes gained approach. Green and regulation is the one I'm looking at the most, but either work. Really, that's the biggest thing. And then the Bermuda putting. I mean, we're looking for guys that at least can be competent on this putting surface. Otherwise, they're fighting an uphill battle as it is.
Brad, what are you looking for?
Tambo, sorry. I was like,
Tambo, my bad, huh?
He's not used to this.
Kenny's hitting the bottle over there, I think, in between, but I'm with Brad.
I'm about to hit it.
That part right. I love the greens and regulation call. Just I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but when you have that, it just encapsulates everything else anyway, right? Like if you're not hitting a lot of greens, it means everything else is going wrong for you off the tee, if you're going in the water, you can't have greens and regulation. If you're going in the woods, you can't have that. So all that matters. Tee to green in general as a whole here is always just you need everything. And then for me, just way more than stats or course history. Anything course history is another one that it matters a lot more here. It's crushed in the past. So that's a nice tiebreaker. If you want to go that route with some lineups, you can. But my biggest focus will be, and we'll talk about it when we get through these tiers, Kenny, is more on the game theory, the strategy, roster construction, just ways to get unique without being stupid, the way I always try and put it, right? Like people, if I just leave $5,000 on the table in every lineup, I'm going to have the most uniques, probably, but they're probably all shitty lineups. Like there's no guarantee you've got the winner in there. So, there's no guarantee either way. I shouldn't say it like that. My point is when people do that, to me, it's like, it's not surprising that you have a bunch of uniques when you left $5,000 on the table. It's how did you build them? Who did you put in them? What do they look like? Is there, even a chance that they've got upside in them built in that way? Because a lot of cases, you're leaving some huge points and potential on the table, especially in something like this with the finishing positions and stuff like that. So I'm gonna focus on that the most this week, Kenny.
All right, before we get into these tiers, I did miss one strategy thing. I'm not playing cash this week. No cash game cornerstones. Let me go ahead and explain this. I wrote this in my article here. All right, so personally, I'll be playing no cash games due to the fact that missing out on one high-owned golfer who does very well will make it very difficult difficult to cash. Ownership for every golfer in cash games will be inflated due to the smaller field and the usual higher owned golfers in cash games that are normally around 35% owned will be close to 50% owned or more this week. So let's say Rory is the highest owned golfer this week in cash games at 60%. If you don't roster him and he ends up winning, it'll be very difficult to cash this week. Now, if you do roster him and he wins, the advantage you get in a normal tournament when you roster the winner in cash will be a lot less than usual. I'm going to be playing GPPs only. I'll probably play like 50 GPP lineups, and that's how I'll go. So let's get to these tiers. Let's start off on this.
You read that statement. You read that statement like a corporate guy that got in trouble just now.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. I just wanted to make sure. I know people are going to be like, "What happened to the cash game cornerstones?" And if I didn't say that part, people will be asking me that all week, and I don't feel like answering that question 875 times. So there you go. No cash game cornerstones this week. No cash. I could change my mind. It's Monday, but right now, as of Monday, I'm not playing cash. Like I sort of want to just because I've been playing so well, but I'm probably not going to do it. We'll see though. I'll check Cubs corner on Wednesday if I have my cash game corner stuff. All right, 10K range. We're going Cam Smith all the way up to Scotty Scheffler. Now, first, we talked about this range a little bit. Question I have for you guys, gentlemen. Rory Rahm, 35% on each. Are we still playing him? My answer is yes. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Brad.
I like Rory better than Rahm, but the price is pretty attractive. You think they're going to be the same ownership?
I'm thinking they're going to be close. They're going to be the two highest owned, and they're both going to be over 30% owned.
Yeah, I think if they're both similar ownership, I'm probably not playing a ton of either of them in this situation. But if I am, I'm playing probably Rahm just to go with that sort of balanced approach. Try and get some.
I can understand. See, the thing is, these guys are playing so well that I think this is the type of chalk that I have no problem eating. What about you, Tambo?
Yeah, I think Brad laid it out pretty nice there. Like, not really interested in a ton of either of them. I think the ownership will shake out a little bit more Rory. So I've got it right now early, but I'm looking like if it's 37 Rory, 30 Rahm is kind of what I was thinking coming in. I also think they will be a very popular pairing. Like, you can just start with that, get Willie Z out of there because people already know that. And look, people will play Scotty, Cantlay, X, even in the 20s. I'm just saying mid 20s, high 20s, whatever. But how many people will just play Rahm Rory? I think a lot more if you were looking at the stacks or the combos after the fact on Fantasy Labs or something like that. You talked to a Playco earlier where that's where he had sort of the stack thing. You could look it up and see how many people play Rahm Rory together. I think that'll be a popular pairing. I prefer Rory over Rahm, actually, even though, just the way it sets up, he just looks better. But I did bet Rahm. I'm just a sucker for it. And everything he did last week just pulls me back in. I've been playing him all season. So the thing I really like here, though, Kenny, is at the top. It's Scotty, it's Cantlay, it's X. Like, to me, I think there's a possibility they're what I would consider under-owned in the sense that they're already up there. They have the upside to do it. They don't make a bunch of mistakes. We saw last year people were willing to get off the previous winner like Cantlay or the highest price guy, which both happened to be him last year. But I think you could see that in Scheffler and Cantlay for sure, because X will get some based on the course history. Like I said, I still think it's tough in people's mind to build like an X Rahm lineup because they just had it the other way last week. So now they feel like they're overpaying for X. Even though it's just the way the pricing shakes out, it's completely different pricing. We have $1,000 less on the minimum guy. You can go right down to 5,000, all these different things. So I've got a lot of interest up top. Scotty for sure, 13-6. It definitely sets up well for him. I think we're going to see a possibility that he ends up just getting the job done and finishing the year, putting a stamp on the player of the year on top of taking home another $18 million to him and Meredith. So I think there's definitely a possibility of that. And then Cantlay will just be the same as always. Kenny, what happened last week? He won. What does that mean? Can't play him this week. Obviously, it sets up well for him. So I think if everyone is going to Rahm Rory, without having to get too cute, even though Zalatoris, if he's healthy, should be a great play, but we have to wait and see what happens there. I still like the two guys up top, Scotty and Cantlay. And then you could make an argument that even though it's way more expensive, X could be better on paper, but Rahm and Rory with the history and the price discount is where it kind of cancels X out a little bit. So Scotty and Cantlay would be my two favorite here right now up top.
Xander's my favorite play in this range. I like Xander. I mean, think about it. He's like one of the best in par threes over 200 yards, one of the best in par fives over 600 yards. There's going to be 4 of those holes per round, 16 holes in the event where he's going to have a slight edge on the rest of the field. Some, and for some players, he'll have a larger edge on those holes who play poorly on that. But he's going to have an edge over everybody on those 16 holes that he plays this week. It's almost a quarter of the holes. He's going to have a small edge, because he's the best from 600 plus par fives, the best on 200 plus par threes. So I like him and the way he's been playing. We can win. This is he said it, his favorite course. Now this is a Brad quote. You always take that with a grain of salt. But I would say Brad must have said that like 877 times.
True. It is a great Brad line.
In 150 podcasts that we did together, or just about. I'm pretty sure he said that about 900 times. So
I look like Brad, a broadcaster to you? I'm not a broadcaster. I'm a podcaster.
So take that with a grain of salt. And I forgot what I'm taking a grain of salt for. Someone remind me. That's how my short-term
factor, though. You mentioned the Xander stuff. Have you been watching him too? Some of these shots, like you could new nickname for him, Xander Saucelay, because the guy has some sauce coming out of those bunkers. Some of the he hold out for eagle again. It just looks good. And when he places it up there, the little spin back that he's got on every shot, where even like the best, like the top players and things like that are talking about him are saying like that's just a shot not everybody has in their arsenal, that he's able to pull it off. So I definitely got interest in that. I like that call quite a bit, actually. And I love the thing Brad just brought up. I'm not a broadcaster. I'm a podcaster. That's such a good one. I forgot. That's such a good one. Go ahead.
The one thing I will say is when I was trying, I tried to come up with some casket cornerstones today. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to play cast. I'm on a hot streak. I'm going to keep going. And so I wanted to start with Xander. I want to start Xander Rory. It was how I wanted to start. And then I tried to fill out the rest of my cast lineup and it just didn't fucking work. Okay. But then I went Rob Rory. Shit looked pretty good. After that, I didn't do it. No, that's not my point. That's not my point. That's not my point. My point is I automatically go to Rory Rahm next, and the lineups look a lot better. You know what I'm saying? And people are going to see that same thing when they're making their GPP lineups. They're going to see that same thing making their GPP lineups. If you want to go Xander or Scheffler and Rahm or Rory, that's just hard. I mean, you got to go way down below, and you got to have like 2 guys in the 5K and 1 guy in the 6K, basically. Or, and then because I want another guy in the 9K range, because I want 3 of these studs, right? And so really hard to do that. But when you do Rory Rahm, really easy to do that. So that's going to show you where that's why I think you're right. The majority of ownership's going to go to Rory Rahm. I got no problem with playing that chalk, but my favorite play is Xander. Let's move on to this 9K range. Only about 5 guys here. I'll go first. I want to pick Sam Burns because he's one of the best Bermuda putters out there. I think he might go a little bit low owned, but I like Finau again. I just want to go. His course history is not great. Okay. Course history, not great at this event. Coming off probably his worst tournament in a while. I'm hoping his ownership goes down, maybe 18%. 18% is like average for this week. Just remember that. Everything's relative when you're going ownership on an event like this. So he's about probably 18%, somewhere around there. I take him, but I want to play Burns, but my favorite play is going to be Finau. Tambo.
Yeah, well, a little tidbit. The 2015 East Lake Cup played here. LSU beats Georgia with the 2 guys facing off against each other. Sam Burns takes down Sepp Straka. Back then, that's just a little extra nugget, but I love
Giuseppe Straka. We'll talk about him.
We're going to talk about him.
We're going to talk about Giuseppe. Giuseppe.
I think Burns is definitely interesting because when you look here, you've got Finau and JT, who, JT is going to, speak for himself when we get to a 4th, 3rd, 9th, 7th, 2nd, 6th. Again, take the staggered out of it. It's just how well he's done at this course. Last week, a huge disappointment. Actually, didn't talk a lot about that from last week. The guy came out hot out of the gate and then had a birdie-free round, not a bogey-free round that we love to have on DraftKings, a birdie-free round. I believe he made 8 birdies over the final 2 rounds, maybe less, actually. I might be way off, whereas KH Lee made like 7 on Sunday alone with the toughest conditions in those places.
Well, here's the thing about JT last week. He was 4 under, okay, and he had just gone on a stretch with 30 holes without a birdie. Going over 3 rounds. You and I
did talk about this. We both tweeted it. Yes.
Going over 3 rounds. And then I was like, how is he only 4 strokes back without a birdie? And then I tweeted that. And then he bogeyed 4 of his next 5 holes.
Yeah, and I had
Basically.
tweeted it like 2 holes before you. That's why I put the Spider-Man gif. I said, like, we're the same dude.
I was wondering what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah,
I saw that. I
said
saw
it
the
because I was
Spider-Man
tilting
gif.
him. I was tilting him big time, but it was insane to me because what had happened was on the Thursday round, remember after he crushed Thursday, like, by the way, JT got this new putter and this new length and all this, and everyone's like, oh, I wish I had that information now. And then you didn't want that information because he literally had a birdie free round. And then the next day started off the same slow pace. Like it was just took forever for him to find birdies out there. But I digress. I think 2 things. One, JT, 2 guys, I should say. One, not in this range, but we're almost to 7,900. But JT and Morikawa, Brad can chime in here in a second. It's a good segue, ownership guru. But I think they get forgiven. I think no matter about JT and what he did last week, and then of course
they're going to be rostered.
Morikawa for the 10 on Sunday,
plus.
people just write off 1 hole. So
25 to 30%.
I think both those guys get ownership here. I like Burns. I like Sungjae Im. I like Cam Young. Actually, he's a guy that I'm hoping for some flop leg. We've been waiting for this Cam Young 64 that everyone keeps talking about for like 2.5 weeks now, and it hasn't happened. He was still in the mix last week. He's another guy that just never came through. I'm pulling it up right quick here now, but 67, 68, hot start. You're feeling good. We all bet him last week. I know everybody did. It was another community bet. And then what ends up happening, the weekend is like what? It was a 72, 72. It's not like he fell apart. It wasn't the 82 or 84, whatever it was at Memorial. So I think he's got big upside. And I should note just one last strategy piece here, Kenny, is like, and I like Hovland. I like Neiman. I'll just name a few, but the point is, I don't give a shit, to be honest, where they start on the leaderboard. I think that's the thing that's, the other thing we didn't talk about enough in our strategy piece. Like when people are building their lineup, they're going to also be looking at it like, yeah, but those 2 can get up here. If you're playing these guys, you're assuming they're going to crush and the ones that are in there are going to find. I'm not going to play 6 guys from the dead bottom of the board. But my point is, I don't care about where they start. If they're 4 under, great. They can find their way up there. We literally talked about it already, but Kevin Na shot 266s and 267s last year, like from the clouds himself. Not everyone's going to do that. There's only 30 guys in the field as of now. But my point is, a lot of these guys are capable. So I don't care about that stuff. And that's how I'm going to look to build my roster. So Burns, JT, Im, Young, Hovland, those are sort of some of the ones that stand out there for me, Brad. What do you got in this range? What are your thoughts on some of the ownership too, just that we talked about already?
Yeah, I've got some overlap with you guys for sure. I like JT and I like Sungjae Im. JT, so I kind of think Finau is going to eat up some ownership with his recent wins. I don't know what you guys think, but I think he'll attract some, and I kind of think that means I really like eating JT as chalk. If JT's like anything under 20%, I'm probably just going to take him. It's like an automatic top 10. It feels like, now that I said that, we all know where he's going to finish, but I mean, realistically, he's one of the most consistent golfers on tour, and he's done it here so many times that it's hard to imagine if he's anything under 20%, not just clicking that button and being okay with it. And that's probably, if that's the case, that's probably where I'm starting a lot of my builds is with JT and Sungjae.
All right, before we move to this next range, one more thing about strategy. I know you talked about, not paying attention to where they are on the leaderboard. I totally agree with that. I came up with a few, Cantley dropping down from 800 to +1 one year. And then, of course, Xander going from -4 to the first round leader. So that's
right out of the gate. Exactly.
Yeah, right out of the gate, first round. Now, one thing that we did forget to mention was the points that they're all going to get, just to start. And I don't think you should pay attention to that either. It's not going to be hard to make up that ground. So say like Cantlay, Wise is 17 points behind Cantlay to start this event. Okay. So Cantlay has 20 points without even hitting a shot. Wise has 3 points without even hitting a shot. To make up that 17-point difference, all it takes for Wise to catch up to Cantlay is for Cantlay to fall back to 4th place. Right. And Wise to have one more 3 birdie streak bonus. Not Cantlay, I'm sorry, Scheffler. It takes okay, let me start this over. I'm confused again. My bad. So Scheffler is 20 points. Wise is 3 points. Okay. And so to make up that 17-point difference, all it takes is one for Scheffler to move down to 4th place, and then Wise to have like 1 3 birdie streak and 3 birdies more for the event, which is like not ridiculous. That can easily fucking happen. So again, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that either. Let's go to this 8K range. Brad.
I might be more confused than when you started, Kenny.
Probably. Brad, why don't you go first? 8K.
Yeah, 8K. You guys are getting ahead of yourselves with Colin Morikawa. He's the one that really stands out in the 7K. But Hideki is actually a little interesting to me. Like, I kind of think he's one of those guys that can maybe get the job done. And, he's got a uphill battle, obviously, starting at 2 under, but he's a guy I'm kind of interested in seeing what his number is. But as far as the DFS lineups go, I mean, he seems like a pretty safe bet. His ownership should be below 10%, probably under 5, I'm guessing.
Who, Hideki?
And you've got, yeah. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I think at 15. Everything's sort of elevated. Yeah.
I think we talk in ranges.
But I mean, here's the thing. There was only 2 people last year that were single digit owned. Only 2 out of the 30. Everybody else was 10% on or more.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
But either way, Brad, I don't think
he's going to be one. I think he's going to be under 20% owned.
I think 10 to 15. I have him at 12 right now. We'll see where it goes. I've got him around 12, 13.
Hideki 12% owned. I'm in. I'm with you, Brad. We're seeing the same shit. I'm in.
Well, again, not to cut you guys off, but think about where he's at. Yeah. Brad had it pegged, but when you've got Neiman, Hovland, and then underneath you've got Connors, Morikawa, Spieth, Homa. Not everyone can get the owner. It'll be spaced out, but even if you want to put him to 15, I still think he's fine. I still think he's fine there. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah, I like that play a lot. I like him and Neiman. Neiman, his iron game's is well above average. Short game has improved leaps and bounds this year. He can hit it a mile. I like Neiman and Decky here. Tambo.
Yeah, I talked Neiman, Hovland already. I think they're both interesting, but Fitzpatrick is probably the best at the top, even with ownership. And it's interesting because usually he's the guy that gets the sneaky ownership at the end of the week. Like he ends up picking it up. And I think he still will to some extent here, but because of everything else around him, I think there at least will be some that gets pulled away. So it'll keep him in check. So as of right now, I like Fitzpatrick and Decky with the call that Brad had more than like Connors, Morikawa, who will go into a second. I know he's not in this range, but again, I'd rather pick my guys up through the middle here. And then I've got probably some hard stands down below. We'll see how it shakes out as the week goes on, but like, I'm not as interested. I kind of think, like I said, with Morikawa, it segues into the range anyway. So maybe I'll just start it, Kenny, but Morikawa for me is what I said earlier. I just think it naturally gets forgiven. People don't care. They look at everything but the 10.
It was 2 holes.
Right. It just gets thrown away and it's written off, and that's fine. The guy looks like he's playing better golf over the last 2 weeks besides that. But the point is, when you look and factor that in at 7,900 Best Buy pricing, like I always talk about, they put him at like sort of the perfect number there. And what does he get? He gets another 15 to 20% ownership, maybe more, who knows? But I think that's a fair range to put on him. And then I start to like the guys above and below a lot better. So that's my take on him. Spieth, who you mentioned earlier, same sort of feeling, to be honest. I actually like a little bit of a different angle here. I like sticking with the guys that are hot, and it'll feel like a fish conversation. But I had this talk with my guy, Degenerates 75 last night, does a podcast there. He had me on as a guest, so I appreciate that. But him and I were talking about this in Showdown, Kenny, like in round 4, for example, or even round 2. It doesn't matter. It's, fade the leaders has become a thing in Showdown where you just fade the leaders no matter what. Wyndham Clark shot 600 today. There's no way he does it tomorrow. Fade him. What ends up happening, though, is I think it goes too far the other way. So now everyone said, I'm going to fade him because he's going to be 30% in round 2 Showdown. And I'll relate it in a second. But what ends up happening is he comes in at like 14% because everyone decided to do the same angle. And now he's actually not over-owned to what you thought it was going to be. So I've seen some really sharp players that are still adapting and are still willing to use a guy like that. And the reason I'm bringing it up here is because I think everyone with Stallings and with Straka, they can't do it again, right? There's no way, even though Stallings took a week off, he missed a cut and then came back and crushed last week. But I just think for where they're priced, where they are on the leaderboard, and the public sentiment of, I can just avoid them because they're terrible scrubs that have just been getting lucky or making a lot of putts or whatever, ends up leaving them a little bit under-owned. Like if they're the guys that end up at 15% or 12%, I actually think that's lower owned than they should be for what their upside is at this price, where they already are on the board. All of that is more where I would consider it than in some of the spots up top where they're all studs. They all can go up, down. In your Cantlay example against Xander those other years. Go ahead.
Well, if you think about Sepp, I mean, he came in second at the FedEx St. Jude, which you were at, correct? Joys of Fairways. East Lake has Joys of Fairways. Bermuda Greens. East Lake has Bermuda Greens. And it's a tough course that's not a birdie fest that you have to sort of grind out. This is a tough course that's not a birdie fest that you have to grind out. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, he played basically the same course and came in second place in a playoff event with a field probably stronger than this. I mean, Scott Stallings, he's been playing out of his mind. It's hard not to go with him. If he's like 20+% protected owned, then maybe I go to Sepp instead. But if he's 15% owned, which will be one of the top 10 lowest owned golfers in this field, if he's 50% owned, it sounds like a good play to me. What about you? You sticking with Morikawa? Or are you going to the 7K range, Brad?
No, I like Sepp too. I'm trying to figure out. He's just a value, right? I mean, he's a good golfer at -4 right now. I feel like that's worth something. I can't quite figure out why he's priced down so much with the recent success he's had. Obviously, is this his first Tournament of Champions, and does that matter to you guys?
I think it is. I don't. Yeah, that doesn't really bother me that much, but.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, like it's just a little nugget just to say, but I mean, within the finals against Sam Burns at the 2015 East, like that has nothing to do with right now. It's years ago, just to say, at least he's seen the course in the past, but definitely playing some better golf. The guy was incredible down the stretch. I do wonder maybe if I'm just underrating the fact right now that others will think like this and say he is a good value at 7,200. I guess, Brad, let you keep it going here. It's not like the 7K range is very big. In the 6K range, do you see anyone, Brad, that could pull away from Straka? I definitely think this. Let me just say one more thing right quick. I think Straka would have higher ownership than Stallings. I think people would see it as like Stallings just did it this past weekend, but that's where people are quicker to move away. Even though he didn't win, like if he had a 1, like it feels like nobody would have played him, but the way it goes sort of opposite effect. But I don't know. Straka feels like a good value on paper. Maybe others see that as well. What do you think, Brad?
So I am actually gonna pivot down to Billy Horschel at 6,900. I think he's kind of one of those guys that I think maybe has the skill set to go on a hard run. I mean, he'll
be the lowest on the 6K range, right? I would think.
Yeah, and he's 35-1 without the strokes. He's one. I'm gonna bring one out of the bag here. I'm gonna put some cheeseburger money on that guy at 35-1 without the strokes. What do you guys think about that?
I got the cheeseburger money.
The cheeseburger money is what I'm getting excited about. I somewhat disagree with Kenny on the ownership factor here. I think you just said it, Brad, with those odds. I think that matters to people, right? And
so
Billy
KH is going to be low at 6K?
I don't. What about Thigala? 6,700.
I don't know. People just love playing Thigala.
Yeah, post.
But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this 5 and 6K range. The chalk is going to
both ranges.
The chalk is going to be Aaron Wise and
For
Adam
sure.
Scott. Do you play these two guys? They're going to be 23% owned or more.
What
Do you
about
play
Harman?
Adam Scott or Aaron Wise?
I would play Adam Scott over Aaron Wise. Aaron Wise is like we
Aaron Wise
he's a lock in your cash games. He's $5,400.
Yeah.
He's capable of scoring like crazy, making birdies, all these factors. Just you know the ownership's coming with him.
So good recently.
He's playing a lot better than Adam
Scott.
He's
supposed to be a stud. Like he was supposed to be a stud his whole career, and now it seems like he's finally starting to figure it out. It just feels like it could. Maybe it's a breakout moment.
I'd rather play Aaron Wise than Adam Scott. I'm only going to play one of those two because they're going to be the two chalkiest guys down here. You can't have 50% of your lineups with these two guys. It's just I don't fuck with that. So I'm going to go Wise here. I like Horschel as a pivot from Scott. I like KH Lee as a pivot from Scott. Just because he came in 5th last week, KH, low key, hell of a season. Like a bunch of good finishes, a win. The guy can compete. I know it's TPC Lee. This ain't TPC, but I think he could do something here. I like him as a pivot off Adam Scott. Anyone else that we're focusing on in these range, guys? Brad?
Brian Harmon's one of my favorite down here. He actually is a guy that I don't think many people will talk much about here coming into this week.
He'll probably will be one of the single-digit owned guys.
Yeah, I
Could
mean,
be.
he's been in the mix though. I mean, he's had some top tens recently, and including 1 2 weeks ago. I mean, he's not playing bad golf when you look at his stats. They kind of line up really well for this course. He's got the Bermuda putting, he's got the green and regulations, he's got some pretty decent short game too for when he's missing greens. But generally speaking, I mean, at this price range, you're not really getting that much out of these guys. Brian Harman looks like one of those guys that, you know, you see him shoot a couple rounds in the 60s.
Yeah. I would say this just to chime in, because I agree with you. And actually, Harman is the guy I would pick out of those four: Scott, KH, Wise, and Harman. I like Harman the best because he's squeezed between them, right? He's, you know, KH is popular because of last week where he came T5. Scott, similar. Wise, we just know. So at least Harman will get squeezed some. But I will say, I think by the end of the week, you see Harman get more ownership than you think. I think the guys that go overlooked here are quite simple. I think it's at the bottom. I think it's Poston and it's Hoagie. When you already have Wise there to make it work, one of them will pick up a little bit of steam, maybe Hoagie, because the fact that instead of playing Wise, some will go up, but others will go down. That's just natural. But I do think that's going to be the case. And then I think as much as people like Thigala, when you have other stuff here, you know what, 10, 12, sure, not single digit, but I don't see him coming in like super high owned or anything. So I think that's something to consider as well. Just trying to think who else here, just going through the bottom. But one thing I was going to say, Kenny, just my final strategy piece is you could make some lineups just cutting off everyone. Take the whole 6K range out and below. Just get rid of them all. Start with Straka, Stallings, or Homa and Morikawa, Spieth, whoever
You're
you
going
like.
to be super unique if you do that.
And you're going up a couple thousand, but that's where your Scheffler becomes Willie Z. And you can still, you know what I mean? Or whatever it ends up being, Scheffler to Rahm, put money on the table. Like you can do some different stuff there. And even when people don't go Wise, it's going to be typically to go to Scott, Harman, Lee, one of the guys at the very bottom, Horschel, all those guys that we just talked about. So I think that's a way that you could get a little bit different as well. Even if you want to just do it in some of your lineups, sort of what I always call building in sets, right? You could do, if you have 100 lineups, you could do 30 this way, 30 that way, and 40 this way to the one that's your favorite, and have 3 different build styles and mix it up that way. So that's another thing for this week too. Brad, I'll ask you this, another question for you. If you're building 150 lineups this week, playing the quarter arcade, you talked about playing it back in the day a bunch, just absolutely destroying it. How many guys, or what's your stance on a field of 30 guys? What do you think you do here? You don't have to give me exact. I'm just trying to think like, what's the type of strategy or approach that you'll take? Because some play all 30, some play like 15 or 18 and go super tight, and then others play 23, 24 and just get a mixture throughout. What's your take on player pool size for this tournament?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question that I hadn't thought about coming into this. I'll be honest with you, I haven't played a whole lot of DFS, and I definitely have not been multi-entering when I've been playing. But I would say, if I had to pick, I would probably start by crossing several of the high-owned guys off the list. What I'm doing here when I'm going through my player pool is I'm asking myself, is this person worth the ownership? And most of the time, those top guys, you know, you start looking at the top owned guys, you can almost start to just cross them off from top to bottom in this small of a player pool. So really what I would say is pick whatever size player pool you want, avoid those top guys, and really look for an approach in your lineups. So that means have a conviction in your lineup. Don't make a lineup by just picking guys or picking guys for a specific reason. Look for players that are going to work well together in a lineup. And that means statistically speaking or otherwise speaking. I like to look at things like around the green. If the tournament is going to be a short game tournament, not many people are going to pick that around the green stat as one to look at this week. So think about building your lineups with guys that all are good in their short game. Something like that is the kind of approach you should be thinking about.
That's the Ben Raza approach, right?
Yeah, he does that for sure, building sort of stat stacks, which is awesome because in every other sport in DFS, not every, but for the most part, there's a way to stack, right? You can stack in a certain way. Even other sports that don't really have stacking have at least some sort of strategy to them, like NASCAR. You're playing a certain amount of dominators mixed with the placement different differential, things like that, where you actually have an angle that you can take. MMA, you make sure no one is fighting against each other in the tournaments. And then you might play, if everyone's playing this favorite, you might play that underdog and get the underdog up top instead, like, or the lower owned guy, I should say, up top, and just different strategy pieces. So for golf, I think that's a great way to go about it. I think you laid it out perfectly, Brad, where you can definitely do something like that this week. And that's how you find yourself on a contrarian roster build where, again, going back to like last year, that 49.8K only duped twice. It didn't matter because they found something that the field wasn't doing in a different construction or however they got there. So I love that call for sure.
All right. Bets. Brad, you got any?
I do. Yeah. Actually, I didn't realize you guys went through these at the end. I was almost just shouting them out while I was going. One of the guys I like to bet is actually Tony Finau. And part of that is because I don't want to play him in DFS. He's actually got a decent number with and without the strokes. So you can kind of take him how you like him. And then JT, I have 22-1 with the strokes. And then Colin Morikawa, I think I mentioned 28-1 without the strokes. The only long shot is Billy Horschel without the strokes, 35-1.
Tambo.
Like it. Yeah, I only bet to win outright. So with the starting strokes. So I got 2, Rahm at 16 and then JT at 25. I think, again, if you're talking guys that can find their way and actually do it, you gave the Xander example earlier, Kenny. We've referenced it a couple times, literally got there on day 1. Like you can find guys that can get there by the end of 4 days. Rahm and JT are those guys for me. So I definitely like them at their numbers.
3 bets for me, all without starting strokes. Xander, 8-1. I think he wins. I bet Xander 8-1. Neiman, 35-1. Decky, 65-1.
I like that Decky one. Also, to ask you this, is this your final shot? It is. I mean, it's the last event, but you didn't get there last week, right? Your goal, I think you had 6 outrights you wanted to hit on the season. You're at 5.
Yeah, no, it was 8 was my goal. 6 is just average, and I'd like to be average.
And you're
so
at 5.
yes,
That's what it was.
I'm at 5.
You're
So
still at 5. This is your chance
I
to
need
hit
one
it.
more. I need one more.
I
Just
knew
bet
it
all
as soon as
30
you
of
said the
them, Kenny.
Xander
No
bet.
big
I knew it as soon as you said the Xander bet.
There's a Xander bet, the 8-1. I had to take him. I took him last week, like 12-1. I think he wins one of these 2 weeks, and he didn't win last week, so I'm taking him this week. All right. Anything else, Brad? It was great having you on. I miss you, buddy. Anytime you want to come back on the podcast, you're more than welcome. I know the fans still love you. They ask about you all the time. Yeah. Really glad you're on. Happy you're sober. I'm really glad that your life is going well. Everything's going good. So anything you want to say to the DJ Nation before we sign off?
Just miss the hell out of you guys. Love you guys. Definitely don't necessarily need to plug anything anymore since I'm not a tout, but I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was really fun coming out of the woodwork here, and peace and happiness to the DJ Nation. Love you guys.
Yep. You can find me on.
You guys can drag me back out at some point. Okay, just let me know.
We'll take you back out. We will definitely. Right. All right, you can find me on Twitter at KendoVT. You can find my article on gupscorner.com. It should be out later tonight. And then make sure check out Prize Picks. It's actually the shit. I played it for the first time for the Commanders preseason game. It was a lot of fun. Made the game exciting. I hit 2 of my 3 parlay, and freaking that one guy, I forget his name, for Kansas City, couldn't catch a pass and he screwed me. But still, it was fun. It'll be fun. We're going to be doing it every week for this season. Tambo.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Can't say enough about it. Obviously, when we look to partner with someone, it's for something that we believe in and play on. I've been playing on it forever. Mayo and I were doing it on the Wednesday live show chat. We had segments on it throughout the season because he's already been partnered with them. So I love that. But when it gets here for golf, there is some incredible opportunities, certain weeks where they just give you stuff and there's bad numbers. And we do this Monday nights so we can get it in the sense it's like they're trying to give away free money, but maybe it's a marketing thing. We're trying to all get on the same page and take a little bit of advantage. So we're going to find the winners for you guys throughout the season. Excited about that. Couple quick notes, Kenny, before we get out of here. Back for the Fortinet Championship on September 12th. So that's when you guys will have us back here for the start of the swing season.
3 weeks off, baby.
Yeah, it's not long. But that's what I was going to say.
Twice as long as the last few years.
And eventually it'll be less, it sounds like. We'll see what we get to, 2024 or whatever it ends up being. But we got a long ways to go until then. We're excited to be here. We're excited you guys are along for the ride with us. You can find me on Twitter at @ToeTagAndTambo. If you need to get that fix in the meantime, lots of football coming up. I'm going to be flipping it over. We're going to have the football tidbits for free on Twitter. You're going to see those. Going to have a lot of stuff coming out over at runpuresports.com. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, do so now. NFL 15 is the code. It's going to end shortly. So hop on. It's all sports, one price. And that's the best deal we've ever had. It's for lifetime and it includes SaberSim. And if you want all the same stuff that we're doing as far as roster construction, ownership, exposures, building out lineups, stacks, everything for NFL. In the meantime, while we wait to get back to this golf season, you not only get that, but then you get golf when it comes back as well. So check us out there on Twitter, again, at Toe Tag and Tambo.
All right, DJ Nation, final event of the season, $18 million up for grab for first place. Let's win some motherfucking money, DJ Nation, and sip on some scissor.
I've been getting dirty money, Jordan Belfort, stacking penny stocks while I'm flipping these birds, sipping on Ciroc, trip 'em up.